Welcome to the Dream, Plan, Start, Grow podcast hosted by Allison Turner. In each episode, we interview real, everyday entrepreneurs to learn how they got their start, what challenges they faced and overcame when starting the business, and what successes each has had. Welcome to the Dream, Plan, Start, Grow show. My name is Allison Turner. I am your host. I created this show in order to interview other entrepreneurs on how they got started and any tips and tools they have learned along their journey that may be able to help someone that either wants to start a business or even someone in business to gain more success. Today I have with me Jaimy Lynn Cohen, Jaimy Lynn Productions. And first question is, how long have you had Jaimy Lynn Productions?
22 years in November, I believe.
Wow. Maybe one of my longest.
Yes.
I've had some 20-year ones, right around the 20. Well, actually, one was 22 years, I think. 22 years.
Yeah, I was working at a little company called Cablevision, and I was an executive vice president of their technology sector called LightPath. I am a recovering geek. I worked for 10 years at MCI, and then I worked at Cablevision, and I was an executive vice president of LightPath brand. And I made my way basically to the top of the ladder, and then I realized that my ladder was against the wrong building.
Oops. Did it jump off that ladder?
A little bit, yeah. Actually, if you want to know, I was reading a book, Julia Cameron, The Artist's Way.
I know that book.
And
I actually own that book.
Yeah, I did it at a book club at my house. I did it on cassette, and I actually went to Kripalu and
anyone remember cassette?
You remember those? It was after 8-track. And then I went to Kripalu and I did her in person even. But
wow.
What got me to really figure out what I wanted to do was a jealousy map. And it had me look at other people in my life of whom I was jealous. And then, because I really wasn't able to uncover my wants and needs for some reason, they were hidden from my view. And when I did this jealousy map, I was dating a man who was a drummer, and I'm thinking, that's not fair. That's not fair. He gets to play music, and I have to go to work every day. So I chose that I wanted to start playing music and didn't want to be part of the corporate world and be a monkey, if you will. No offense to monkeys.
So Jaimy Lynn Productions was born.
Yeah.
And how do you get started in the music world?
It's a very tough business.
I've heard that from multiple people that I know that play music and try and get those gigs. And it's a tough business to make a living at.
It is. It's really good to just play.
Yeah. You play a bar scene all day long, but you probably make $100 a night or something. So.
Yeah, well, it's 2022, and I made more in 1988 than I'm making now. And people complain about their jobs. Just, okay, if you're a garbage man and you throw yourself into your work, but I did throw myself into my work in essence. And a lot of musicians, what they do, I think, is wait for the phone to ring. And the phone don't ring.
No.
Even the cell phones don't. And it's a matter of methodically going after your business and then altering it. I mean, I played in the Glenn Miller Orchestra for 5 years. I was a member of a 35-piece big band.
35-piece?
Yeah. And then 35 pieces turned into 20-piece, and then it turned into 15, and it turned into 10, and quartets, quintets, quartets, and duets. And now Allison, I play with myself, and I get paid for it. And I'll tell you, that was a line I used at a networking group because everybody's in their own little world and nobody's paying attention. Everybody's on their phones.
Yeah.
And I used that line.
Probably, how many paid attention to that, though?
But everybody put their phone down and they want to know, how can I play with myself and get paid for it?
Yeah.
Well, you could be a musician with an iPad. Yeah.
There you go.
There you go.
So what's the most exciting gig you've had?
I've played for 5 presidents: Queen of
Wow.
England, Duke of Earl. There is a Duke of Earl. And we did a show, Norman Lear, I Love America, with Barbara Streisand in London. And she is a very difficult person. But you know something? Women are bitches and men are powerful. And that's the way we, as a society, tend to look at people. And
Yep.
I think that for me, I had to bring my femininity into it, but in a way that was not as forceful, but more like motherly direct, and make inquiries. When I worked at MCI for 10 years, and I used to have to make cold calls. And I remember one day making 50 calls. I used to do slash marks. I made 50 calls, and I had 50 people hang up on me. And I remember this guy, Lenny, the next cubicle over, he said, "Wow, aren't you glad you got that over with?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He says, "Well, it's a law of averages. And if you got your rejections done in one day, you might tomorrow come in and start
50.
hitting it in a good way."
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a numbers game. It's still the same old stuff. It's a sales funnel. It's trying to figure out who has an opportunity. And what I'm doing now is I'm regrouping, because I did the circuit in New York. I had agents booking me. I worked for 2 very large contracting companies, and they used to put me into a band. I was a side guy in the band, and I played big band music, so I knew the stuff, which was awesome. I loved it. Grew up on it. I started that when I was 17 years old. And so I would get calls for things, and they would put me in bands, and the people would come up to us. They go, "Wow, you guys are a great band. How long have you been together?" And we say, "I don't know. What time is it?"
Oh, 5 hours.
Yeah. We've been together for like a few hours.
Yeah.
So you have to be adaptable and malleable in order to be a musician. I played a country western gig last week. I play jazz. I play rock. I play blues. I sing. You have to do, stand on your head and spit nickels.
Do a little bit of everything, huh?
Right.
Well, and I think adaptable and malleable goes to any business, no matter whether you're a musician or a company like ours or another company. I mean, you have to be able to adapt with what's going on in society, the times. Obviously, we just went through a whole pandemic, which shut down your industry completely. For the most part, then people went online, but you have to be able to adapt to each of those circumstances. I mean, I just had someone on that we released last week who's a PR person. She was a PR person in Washington, D.C. Then she moved to Florida. She sold that PR firm, moved to Florida. Now all of a sudden, she's in a much different market. She's in Delray Beach, which is entrepreneurial. So they're not paying the big PR firm prices that they were paying in D.C. So she adapted her model. She did the research. She adapted her model. So she's been in business now since, I think, 2004 down here, or 7 or something like that. So with this new model, but she had to adapt in order to do it. If you try and stay in the same thing, you just burn up.
Well, if you stay in the same lane and the traffic is passing you by, then you're still in the same lane, or you're behind a truck, or you're in a ditch. And I think that's what I'm coming with, up to, is now a lot of people retire to Florida. They have a pension, they have Social Security, and they want to just play music for fun. And it has significantly devalued what a musician makes down here. And as a result, I'm now developing a new line, if you will, which is more attracted to the communities and things of that nature, because, I have played theaters and venues, and I know how to contract. I mean, my business is not just me.
Right.
I would book musicians and contract as well, and I still do it in New York and Florida. So if someone needs a musician or a band or an ensemble or whatever is needed, I have a huge database that I can refer to, and I create it.
Wow. Did not know that part.
Yeah, see?
They then refer you to?
Yes, they do. So it's, it's like a handshake, and it's the honor system, and we all work together, and you know what they say, both hands wash each other, and then both hands wash the face. So it's
yeah. I mean, I know the bar scene down here does not pay well. And the restaurants probably don't, unless they're a really high-end restaurant that wants to bring in something for New Year's Eve or something like that. But I know the communities do have social budgets and budgets to basically make their members happy.
Right. And even in that regard, the communities are shifting now. A lot of, as the older people, pass on to their next destination, there's a lot of people that come from the north or from other areas that are potentially younger. So you want to make sure that you appeal. I want to make sure that I appeal my degree is international marketing and communications. I want to appeal and to the community that I'm playing for and be adaptable.
Right.
That to me is a very key part of what I do. And it's a little different when you do a theater because you can't actually see people because you have the lights on you.
Yeah.
But like anything else, you adapt and you can, like you said, be malleable, which is a vital thing to do in any industry.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the communities now, do you have to call the communities to try and get booked, or do you have an agent because you said you book things? So
yeah, I'm just now starting this because it's
a work in progress.
Yeah, well, what happened was I was very involved in the assisted living, and when COVID hit, we were the first to get locked out, and we're the last to come back in.
Oh wow!
And
so you're still not in?
And some of them aren't.
Really?
A lot of them. Yeah, well, it's an excuse. Just like we can't get you the product. I ordered my hurricane windows at the beginning of May for 12 or 14 weeks, and they're like, oh, supply chain. It's not supply chain. It's getting away with it and using something as a scapegoat, right? They're blaming COVID for it. But when you take me out of blame, you have blah, blah, blah. And that's all it is to me, honestly. And so my communities, a lot of them cut their budget because they've realized, we could just put a YouTube up there. And I just feel sorry for those older people because I love to play for older people. And I love Alzheimer's patients. You walk into a room and they have this, stuffed cat on their lap that they're petting, and they have their baby dolls and, whatever comfort they have. And people are, they're withered over, and I start playing music from their youth, and they start blossoming like a flower. And I ask them to please help me with the words, and they know every word, every song.
You would think these communities would, because there's so much research that's been done in music therapy and how, especially with Alzheimer's, I've seen some of those studies and things like that, and how beneficial music can be for those patients. You would think that they would think that as opposed to just cutting their budget or using that money somewhere else, because obviously that's what's happening.
It's
in
a
reality.
business, isn't it? It's a business, and if they can get away with it, they do. And they're not reducing the rent. Or the monthly payment.
It's probably gone up.
It's still going up, and
right.
And the value. It's just that's the human end of it. And that to me, I don't know. I love what I do. I start getting verklempt. I play a wedding. I cry. I'm invested in what I do, and it's beautiful to watch people and make a difference. And you walk out, and they're singing, and they're dancing, and they're walking and wheeling or whatever they're doing. It's great. It makes me feel good to do that. I said, even if I won the lottery, I would do what I'm doing.
Yeah. Well, when you love what you do,
you never work a day in your life.
Exactly. So how often do you play now? Weekly, monthly?
Last week I did a jazz gig in Fort Lauderdale on Friday. I went to a party on Saturday, which was fun. And then I did what they pay you. I volunteered to do a brunch, a luncheon, because one of my neighbors is involved with the Shriners, and what they do for those kids, those sick kids, is just amazing. So I did that on Sunday, and then Tuesday I played my country western gig where we kicked breast cancer, these wonderful women that overcame breast cancer. It was like a wonderful event to support their health.
Yeah. So it varies.
It varies. There is absolutely no consistency whatsoever to almost anything in my life. And we were starting, somebody wanted me to play in a Kansas band, and I got all ready to go, and we went to the rehearsal, and Next thing you know, the bass player wasn't able to make it, and then the guitar player quit because it's a lot of work. And people don't want to invest the time. They want to just go and play. Because normally I could just go sit in with any band and I can hear it. I could just play with them.
Right. But you got to all be synced together in order to, if you, especially like those tribute bands, like
You have to
which
play with
get,
the play.
well, yeah, which get big money or can get big money because you're good.
Yeah.
Like that's where some of the money's at, I know, in that industry.
Right. But you have to travel.
Yeah. Which depends on how much money.
Yep.
How much money and how far.
Exactly. I did a casino gig a couple months ago, and the guitar player goes, "Oh, it's such an easy gig." I go, "No, easy gig is 5 or 10 minutes from my house. This was 2.5 hours." He told me it was about an hour.
Oh.
And I believed him. Now, listen, what was I going to do? And I wasn't driving. The vocalist drove, and we had a fun time. And they did not give us a crust of bread. Did not give us, you could have a club soda, not even a pop. It was ridiculous. It was absolutely ridiculous. I don't understand how people look themselves. Or play a restaurant where they don't want to feed you. If your passion is food, why wouldn't you want to feed somebody?
Well, yeah. And maybe you would have someone come back then to you, like as a customer, as opposed to just the hired help.
Right. Right.
Or speak well of your restaurant for someone that was looking for a restaurant in that area.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I lived in Germany for 4 years, and even the people that worked in restaurants, they were respected because they had pride in their jobs, and and musicians and artists were very respected. And even in New York, I think more so. There's very little jazz down here, and I love jazz. And I play in a big band at Mar-a-Lago and the Breakers, and they used to fly me down from New York because there were no violinists that played this kind of music that could stand up on their own anymore. Mm-hmm. So I guess.
You got a niche.
Yeah, I got a niche. I stand for music.
So how did you decide to move to Florida? Because obviously New York would be in my mind, the better place for music.
Well, actually, this is a good question because I was only going to stay here for like a few months out of the year because January, February, March is very slow in the music business in New York.
Snowbird people down here.
Yeah, I was going to be a snowbird, and because you get a snowstorm in those 3 months, and all that planning for your wedding goes bye-bye, and you have to reschedule. And not as much going on in the catering facilities or in the club date environment. I ended up buying a place in Florida, saying I may as well enjoy myself instead of being stuck in the cold. I mean, I'm from Ohio. We have so much snow there, you don't even want to imagine. And I got kind of tired of. I played the Jonas Brothers wedding at Oheka Castle.
Really?
Yeah. I did all the music. I came home. I had to dig myself into my driveway. It was 2 a.m, and I had to dig myself into my driveway. After playing and setting up and tearing down and all this stuff. And I thought, there's got to be a different way. So now I'd rather shovel sand than snow. And then, I don't know, I guess I started looking at some places down here when I started looking, and there was a waterfront place, and HOA was like $600 or $700 a month on the intercoastal with an infinity pool and a gym on the premise, water view, and I'm like, I'm not paying $600 a month for an HOA.
On top of everything else, yeah.
Right. Then I went back to New York, and I thought, I'm paying more than that a month to look at a tree and a fire plug. I paid, $800, $900 a month in taxes.
Oh.
And I said, no. And I'm not from New York. So I said, maybe it's time for a change. And I was down here, and drank the Kool-Aid.
Kool-Aid?
I drank the Kool-Aid.
You got the place on the Intercoastal?
No. I got a place, a little villa, which is very nice. It's a very nice little place. And I'm looking at $1 million houses now. And I like my place better.
Yeah.
My closet's bigger, my kitchen's bigger, my bathrooms are done over. And, they say no place like home.
Yep.
Yeah. So I love it here. But I think it's a matter of regrouping, just like, playing with a big band and then scaling back to me and an iPad because the budgets are shrinking And so is the size of the ensemble. And rather than complaining about the situation that people are coming down here and stealing my work from me, they're playing for nothing, that's not going to get me anywhere.
No.
Complaining about it is, you're either a part of the problem or you're part of the solution.
Yep.
And I'd rather be part of the solution.
Yeah. And I think you make a great point, because mindset's so important in business ownership.
Yes.
Because when you start a business, you have this, whatever the idea is, unless you have a huge budget behind you, or, money that you've saved up to like drop into whatever the company is, you end up doing everything initially. You're the marketing person, the salesperson, the website designer, whatever, the accounting person, the person, actually doing the service,
right.
The cleaning person, all that type of thing.
Right.
And you have to, if you don't see those results right away. I mean, I know when I started this business with a business partner back in 2012, 13, somewhere in there, it was 13. We came to the Delray, we joined the Delray Chamber. It took probably a good year to year and a half to brand in that chamber. And I went to probably like 95% of everything. I went to all the grand openings. I went to the, all the different events. I was at pretty much everything, but where people would see you and like, oh, you're Allison from different name at the time. But, like they knew who I was, but it took that much time, where you're like in front of people. That doesn't mean we didn't get business before that. We did, but like just a brand to the extent of like people knew who you were. So, if you weren't standing right in front of them, it could be like, oh, did you talk to Allison?
Right.
So,
but there's a lot more people that use your service than would be my service.
Yeah.
Maybe it's for your 90th birthday, or if you have a kid that's getting married, or you have a christening, or whatever it is. And so I would find that I'd have to pollinate a lot of different networking groups and a lot of people. And I look at it as I'm like a farmer. I'm planting seeds and hopefully, handing out cards, being present, and hopefully, when somebody is about to do an event, they can include music, because I always say it's just a gathering until you include music, and then, and only then, does it become an event.
Very nice. Or an experience.
Yeah, an experience. So, it's a matter of being, having that ability to shift and keeping your nose to the grindstone, like you spoke of. And, the first year, it's hard. It's not an easy thing to do. So I said the first year, I just wanted to survive. And then the next, after I got to a point where I was surviving, I made it my goal to thrive, and to track things and to be accountable for my actions, and also track how much time I'm spending doing what is yielding me the best results. If networking groups are yielding results, great. And if they're not, because there's not as many people that would be,
potential clients, right?
Potential clients. But sometimes you just don't know who a potential client is.
Right.
And in New York, people were scoffing the DJs. And they were all upset that the DJs were taking the band's work away from them. And I canvassed the DJs, and I had a package that I created, which was I would play the ceremony and the cocktail hour. I'd play acoustic violin, classical music, maybe have a flute player that doubled on sax. And we'd go with a keyboard player playing left-hand bass. And then we would go inside and we would play jazz, and the flute player would play flute and sax. I'd get some percussion instruments. I sing, I play the violin. So there was a lot of diversity and the ability to have a package. And then the DJ would take over and play the event.
The dinner.
Yeah,
and
the dinner.
Party
and the dancing.
And
And I actually ended up making more money doing that than I would have, or the same amount as I would have had I been there all night.
Yeah.
So it worked out very well.
Yeah. But I think you have to think outside the box as a business owner, which is what you just did, or what you did back then.
Right.
And figure out how, instead of seeing the DJ as like the competitor, how can I collaborate with that DJ or any DJ and put some kind of package together where maybe the people want, like you said, dance music. So, and that's a whole different band than like a violin player and a flautist and a saxophone player. That's a whole different kind of music.
Whole different ballgame.
Yeah, where you're not
Whole
bringing in
ballgame.
two different bands in,
You're right.
which would probably cost you more money, where you can bring them in and, collaborate.
Right. Well, I didn't just look at myself as a musician. I looked at myself as an event planner and somebody so I would go to the event planners and I would say, listen, I know you have a lot of details to manage. I will take the music off your desk and I will coordinate the equipment, the music, the rehearsals.
Right.
I would talk to the venue. I'd make sure that the venue knew exactly who we were, where we were going to park, how much time we needed to load in, every detail, and to what the people could wear, what my band was able to wear, what they were doing, how they would present themselves, and I handle everything soup to nuts. Am I anal? Yes. But I
like type A people.
Yeah, you just need to be that way. I spent 5 years in the military. I was in the Air Force band for 5 years. So, I mean, if there's a thread somewhere, just give me a scissor. I got it. But I'm happy to do it myself. And not only that, but it paid off. And why did it pay off, you might ask? Because.
Why did it pay off?
Thank you for asking. It paid off because then I would know the people at the venue because I'd already dealt with them.
Yeah.
And then they would become my clients. And I would just kind of spider my way out to wherever I needed to be. And by providing more of a service, and they would see how I operate, and they would see the value in just making one call to me and having, me find them the keyboard player in one room or a trio in another room or whatever they need for their, we used to do all kinds of big events in New York. I'm sure you can imagine.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So did you get any kind of percentage off of that when you found people?
Yeah, I booked them. I had a booking.
Booking fee?
I'm a booker.
Booker. Yeah, but I mean, it sounds like
Booker, not booger.
Booker.
Booker, yeah.
Booker.
Yeah.
Make sure we enunciate. But it sounds like you're acting as a business owner versus a musician. Because I think a lot of musicians, or at least a lot of people that I see, don't act as business owners. Now, I don't see a huge array of them, so I can't really speak. I can only speak for the ones I see down here, which is a small sample size, so I won't speak for the industry as a whole. But I think you have to think in that business mode versus, hey, I'm a musician, I'm a creative, and like, I just want to go play music. Kind of like you said, like the people that are coming down to retire, and they're like, I just want to go play music.
Right.
Which is fine.
Because they want to do it for nothing.
Right.
And not for nothing, I'm not going to do that.
No.
But as they say in New York, not for nothing.
But I think, that's a big difference. And, you have to think through all those pieces. So maybe you weren't thinking through all of them at the time, but you collaborated with the DJ. You got into like whatever venue, and then you handled the venue for the music side, and then you connected to the venue, the event person at the venue, and then that person could then, like you said, it was that spider effect.
Yeah.
And that's really, that's what networking is essentially. It's just networking and not, you're not going to a Delray Chamber event or some other kind of chamber event. You're just doing it through your industry. And each person's got to adapt to where their potential clients are.
Right.
So that.
Exactly. Well, I had a business background, so I had that going for me. And I worked for MCI Communications when nobody knew who they were. We had no idea. And I just remember like AT&T, they were our competition. It was a monopoly.
Yeah.
And nobody understood anything about their bills, including the client. So I asked my supervisor and the marketing people, they go, we have no idea how to do that. So I had to call AT&T. And they told me how to read their bills. And I figured a way, they told me exactly their product offering, what they were doing. And I had the opportunity, once I had the knowledge, to sell against them. And I think it's intrinsically the same in any industry. To understand what the environment is, what the playing field is, go after and understand who your competition actually is. And these days with the internet, it's so easy. And, you could just scroll through someone's website at 3 a.m, unless you're like you.
Or 4:30 in the morning.
Or 4:30 in the morning.
When I get up.
When you get up. Yeah, exactly.
Versus before you go to bed.
Right. Well, we have a lot more flexibility. We have a lot more knowledge at our fingertips. It's
Right.
just, are we willing to utilize it to our advantage? And, it also could be slightly overwhelming.
I was just going to ask you that. I mean, literally, that's what came to my mind when you said that was, do you ever find, because sometimes when you have so much knowledge, you find it overwhelming because, you're like, okay, do I do this? Do I do this? Do I do this? And you really have to pull that type A in and say, okay, today I'm just focusing here and this is what I'm going to focus on. And, if it's look at competitors' websites, for example, or something like that, I'm going to focus here. And then, tomorrow I'm going to focus here and not get that squirrel syndrome of, here and then someone calls you and then something happens over here and you're like,
I think they call that ADD.
Yeah.
ADD.
Yeah, but I don't find I have ADD, but I find that I have to really still, because sometimes, I'm happiest if I can stay in a schedule. So if I'm working on client stuff from say 9 to noon, I don't want to have to answer the phone, or I don't want to talk to anyone. Like I just want to do that. Now, sometimes I will shut my phone off and I'll just tell my assistant, hey, I'm going on do not disturb. So if you need something, this is how you're going to reach me.
Right.
And sometimes they will do that, especially if I'm super busy.
Right.
But other times it's beneficial to answer those phone calls, because you never know when it might be potential business. So, you have to kind of weigh those things out.
Well, what you're speaking to me about at that, I see it as like dribbling the ball on the court. You're on the court in your life. And a lot of times I want to take a look at where the basket is. Where's the goal? And instead of always dribbling the ball and going up and down the court, I need to score. And you also touched on something else that was interesting. Like I have so much knowledge. Well, I think that for me, I need to remain as humble as possible and realize that there's always something to learn.
Oh, yeah.
And I have an accountability group that I started in my house 17 years ago because I was all over the place. And I wanted to streamline, and I make weekly lists, and I have partners that I clear with, which we could do in another section. More on this later.
Yes.
And, but that really keeps me kind of focused. And then I have my calendar, and it's good that you do that. I heard that, you schedule in time to work on a client. You make sure that you have like a certain amount of time, to work on, which I'm sure really from 4:30 in the morning, you have a lot more flexibility than someone like me.
Well, but I don't necessarily start work until probably 9 or sometimes 10, depending on the day. Sometimes I network at 8 a.m. So I have a couple of networking groups I go to that are 8 a.m. groups. Right. They're not, once every week. One's every couple of weeks. But I do like some reading, I do some gratitude, I do set some goals for the day. Like that's kind of my time. And then I walk for 45 minutes to an hour.
Right. I love to walk.
And then I come back and have some coffee, and I do scope through some social media at that point. And sometimes I'll post about the walk or whatever comes to my mind at that moment.
Right.
And then go shower and figure out what the next step is. Sometimes I'll flip through a few emails just if I am looking for an email. But for me, that kind of sets the tone for my day and then helps me be more focused and efficient than if I got up at 8 and I'm like, oh crap, I got to get to the office in like an hour. Now I missed the walk. I missed this, I missed that, because it's not easy getting up early. Cause even like this morning, the alarm went off at 4:30. So it's a watch alarm initially, so it vibrates. I must have turned that off. And then the second alarm on the phone, which makes a noise, went off at 5. So I think I got up at 5:15-ish. I think I had snoozed once. So, and that's been more of a recent thing because I've been like a little more tired, but I have to get to bed by like 10:30, because I figured out that I need like 6 hours is like optimal for me.
Yeah, I'm a 6.5 hour girl.
Yeah, 6 to 6.5.
It's important to understand how much time you need.
But it took me a while to figure that out because I listened to someone on Clubhouse early in the morning that was talking about his sleep cycle. And he's like, I only need 4 hours and 40 minutes. And it's like 2 sleep cycles. I'm like, how do you figure out what your sleep cycle is? So I'm sitting here trying to figure this out. So like I could figure out by the end of the week, if I was only getting 4 to 5 hours, because sometimes that happens, then I was like exhausted by Friday. I'm like, okay, I just want to go to sleep. So once I hit that 6 to 6.5, so that's my target area, but it doesn't always happen. But
Yeah, they all, what I always say, that time is a very precious commodity. And
Yeah.
if time is a commodity, then my schedule is my budget. Yeah, my schedule's my budget. How do I budget my time? Because we really all just have 24 hours a day.
Yeah, it's the one thing we're all equal to.
Yeah, and we found out how many equals we are during COVID, and how the whole world was affected. It really levels the playing field, made me realize how human we all are. And diversion is part of humanity, and so is focus. Yep. And to stay focused on a goal and make sure that it's obtained. I'd rather have a goal than obtain it than not have a goal. Right? I'd rather have a goal rather than having. How does that go? I'd rather have a goal and obtain and not maintain and not obtain it than not have a goal at all.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I think, you and I are similar in that respect. I mean, I have to have that something. I'm like, even if it's a goal for the week, it could be a goal for the week, or it could be a goal for the month, or whatever the focus is.
Well, that's sort of like the Stephen Covey thing. I did the Stephen Covey 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I did the training in Manhattan, and sharpen your saw, but start with the end in mind. And visualize what you want for yourself in your life and in your business, and then work backwards on how you're going to obtain that, and then break it into bite-sized pieces. You don't eat a pizza all at once. How could you do that?
Oh, you're saying one bite.
Break it into slices, and then you
say I could do it in one sitting. I could eat a whole pizza, maybe.
I would like to see that.
Oh, trust me, I could do that. Try not to do that, but I could do that. I love pizza.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, we manage to create what we want, and we find time for what is important to us.
Well, it's all about priorities.
It is, and if I can't get something done today, and I could say, well, you know what, I can find time tomorrow to do that task. Yeah. And work it into my day, and be kind to myself too. Like you said, to take some time for yourself to set up. I need to walk. I need to go for my walk. It's like keeping my head where my feet are, and everybody's got their own strategy for what works for them. Yeah. To keep yourself grounded and present and focused on that which you're doing, and it's also important to, I think, have a space to do that. Like an office that's designed for work, and we were talking about that, like these assisted living, they have recreation rooms, and that I'm going to put it on my office door, that I'm going to recreate in my life, and have that in my office and recreate, because I'm finding, as you alluded to earlier, that the market has shifted, especially since the COVID happened, and things are not where they used to be. So I've got to go digging in other places, and I've got to recreate myself again. Recreate.
Yeah. Now, have you done any marketing online as far as playing live on social media, anything like that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And I at the beginning of COVID, I did a Mother's Day show for one of my clients, and somebody hacked in, and it just set me off. I actually went into my neighborhood, and when everything was completely shut down, I did a couple shows outside, and
that's cool.
And I had my neighbors literally crying, coming up to me and saying what a difference it made for them, just to have something normal.
Right.
Just something.
And a live music where there was none.
Well, I don't think people realize the value until I'm at an event and I'm playing, and then the music stops, and it's almost as if the bottom falls out to me. I mean, for me, I see it as just such a wonderful backdrop or conversation. I did during this lunch that I did last week, I actually look for people to be on their phones, because I don't want to be so overbearing for these people. And a lot of times a band will do that. They'll get over musicians. Yeah. And it's annoying. I don't want to eat my food, and when I can't even hear, it's just, I don't know, maybe I'm hypersensitive, but I'd rather be sensitive to my clients and to people. And I think that it's important in any business to be aware of what your client hears, sees, experiences,
Mhm.
and the customer experience really has to be the bottom line. I don't want to play something that is important for me. I believe that I'm a musical psychic. And the reason I say this is because I'll stroll at tables and I will play that. People, well, that's my wedding song. It's
Oh,
so weird
wow.
that you played that. Or and I remember one time I played this one song for this woman and I looked up and she was sobbing. And I'm like, what did I do? Because that was my husband's song. And he just
Oh.
died. He just passed
Oh.
last month because that was his favorite song. I go, I think that's your husband
Yeah.
coming through me
You're medium
to
too.
realize that he wanted
She's a
to
music
show you
medium.
I'm a music medium.
Here we go.
I used to be a large, but then I went on this diet. We'll talk about it another time. Oh, that was another thing. That was another thing that happened to me. Once I had this agent down here. These agents some of them they've been doing this so long, they don't have all their properties and they're not investing in properties, let's say. And I had a date. And to play for her. And I said, I'm supposed to play for you on this date. She goes, no, you're not. I go, are you sure? Because I got an opportunity to do a job in New York. Take it. I'm sure so bottom line is, she called me back after I took the date in New York and said, no, you're supposed to play here. And I'm promoting you. You're the headliner. And I go to the venue and they said, musician, we thought we had a magician. I walk up on stage and I can smell the sound guy get there from my sound check. He smells like a gin mill. Oh, Tony, God. You know who you are. And fast forward, it's my first song and the background tracks stop working. Tony, again, you know who you are. He says, give me a minute. I'm in front of the 600 people and all the spotlights are on me.
Give me a minute.
I started telling jokes. What else do you do? I started telling jokes and I said, I always thought this would be the worst thing. It's like put it into a lion's den, really.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Trying to be a tap dancer way out of it.
Lots of lions out there in the audience.
Right? And I said, wow, I always thought this would be really tough, like standing in front of an audience with no clothes on. And this guy in the back says, why don't you try that, honey? And anyways, the show always goes on and we figure out a way. And, when you think you have the toughest business, you look up, you see better, you look down, you see worse, and you make the best of it.
Yeah. Adept. Malleable, huh?
Malleable.
Yep. So she's a magician. She's a comedian. What else do you do?
Very, very funny. Very funny. And you know what's interesting? I was a headliner in New York in a lot of theaters, and they would hire me. People would buy tickets to see me. And I never thought anybody wanted to hear anything I had to say. And I had to submit my patter, which is the dialogue between your songs. Oh. And I ended up finding out so much information, really? Which I never considered. And I would do research on the composer, the era, the show, the music, whatever. And I learned so much about exactly what I needed to communicate to the audience. And the audience responded in kind because I was reaching out to them verbally as well as musically. And, so that was very interesting to find out. And I mean, it makes me think about, when I lived in Germany, I played in a band and I didn't speak any German yet at the time. And the band didn't speak English, but we managed to make music because music is a universal language. And so is business.
Yep.
There's methodologies that work throughout any business. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's just like putting your nose to the grindstone and being persistent. And like we said earlier, when you love what you do, you never work a day in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we start to wind down, one question I ask everyone is, if you were to go back and kind of look at your career as an entrepreneur and you determined there was one thing that really helped accelerate that? Either something you started out with or maybe something you developed along the way that might be helpful to someone that wanted to start a business. What might that be?
Well, I actually started a technology business beforehand, and I was going to go help people with their tech needs. And I guess I wasn't as passionate about that. Although I did like, my tech stuff, and the business failed. I didn't continue that business, and yet I lived, and I was able to start another business. And I think once we come to realize that, it's not life or death, and that if a business does fail, it's not the end. It could be a new beginning. And even in view of the fact that the market in Florida is so very different than it is in New York, one of my agents, he used to give me directions from his house, and I didn't even know where he lived. And rather than, so I had to figure out how to work in a market that wasn't working in the way that I needed it to work. So I think that, understanding that we can always slip and then we can go forward, slip and go forward. It's all sort of part of the process.
Yeah. It's always an up and down. So I always tell people, if you think you're going to start a business and just go this direct path up here, that way.
Well, when you think about it, Allison, let's get a visualization of a heart monitor. A heart monitor goes exactly like that. It goes up and down.
Yep.
And the alternative is flatline.
Don't want that.
No, we don't want that. So yeah, it's all a journey, not a destination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. Thank you very much for joining me today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me. And you could have given me some of these questions in advance. I could have thought about them, but it wouldn't have been nearly as much fun, right?
No, I don't have any of the questions in advance besides my first one and my last one. I know those two.
Oh, okay.
Everything else I play off of what you say.
Oh, well, good job.
So thank you for joining us on the Dream Plan Start Grow show. My name is Allison Turner. If you have questions for me on business, how to start a business, how to accelerate in your business, you can go to dreamplanstartgrow.com. You can also email at success@dreamplanstartgrow.com. I do offer a complimentary 30-minute consultation through that website. So please go on, and thank you for joining us, and I'll see you again next week.
Can I do a plug for my website?
Oh, I forgot that part.
www.jaimylyn.com. JAIM as in Mary, Y. Jaimy Lynn, LYNN.com. But Jaimy Lynn, no space.
That's the first time I've actually forgotten that.
Don't be discouraged by a 516 number. And if you dial the 561, you'll speak to Suzanne. It gets a lot of my calls. 516. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Dream Plan Start Grow podcast with Allison Turner. If you like what you heard, make sure to subscribe and leave a review. Join the Dream Plan Start Grow community by following us on Facebook or Instagram @Dream Plan Start Grow. See you in the next episode.